Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's YBP Gang, YBP Nation, YBP Boxing, YBP MMA. And we're doing a post-fight recap for, obviously, the Jake Paul versus Mike Perry fight that just took place. Just going through it real quick, man. It was a complete and utter mismatch. Jake Paul was just levels ahead of Mike Perry, as I suspected. I didn't really drop a prediction for the video. Honestly, don't really know why. I don't really like making prediction videos like late into fight week. Or I like making them like right as the fight comes out, so it gets time to like get views. So I was just like, I'll just let it be. But obviously I'm here with the recap, so hope that's good. But yeah, man, it just seemed like Jake Paul was levels ahead of him in the boxing. Mike Perry. I mean, you see with the BKFC fights, just not very defensively responsible, and just not that good of a skilled of a boxer. When it comes to that, so. It's just one of those things where I feel like his skills from that sport didn't translate to this sport. People got to remember that those are two different sports. BKFC is not the same thing. Bare knuckle boxing is not the same thing as boxing. Most of those fights don't even last, 1-2 rounds. They end quick just because of the, the injuries, the damage, with the fist hitting the face, like just everything being so unprotected. So it's a whole nother sport. You can't treat it like the same thing. Yeah, so honestly, not like I said, not too surprised. I will say Jake Paul, his cardio didn't look that good, in the fight. I think he looks better at 185. Like I thought he looked good like in the later rounds when it came to fights like with Tommy Fury. Even the Anderson Silva fight, he looked really good, when it came to the cardio. Nate Diaz slowed down a little bit, but yeah, that's something that he has to work on. I think it just comes with being in shape. I don't think there's a version of Jake Paul where it's like he can move up and have that good cardio. I think he has to, stay at a good, good weight, and then at 185, and then that's where he's gonna have that good conditioning, because it's not, you put someone like really good in front of him, he has to be on his tip top shape, man, like on his A game. So just get that conditioning up, because that's not good. He honestly should have finished him in like inside 2 rounds. Honestly, he could have finished him inside 1. It was that lopsided of a fight, lopsided, skill set. If it wasn't for Mike Perry like being tough as bricks, man, like, or tough as having a granite chin, he would have been done. But yeah, I mean, you saw from the opening bell, there was a speed difference. That's when I knew it was bad. The smaller guy was slower than the guy who's bigger, who's supposed to be the bigger guy. I mean, that's never good. What you see with you look at Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje. Max Holloway was more skilled guy and he was faster. With Mike Perry, he didn't have any. He was less skilled and he was a slower guy, even though he was a smaller guy moving up. So fighting a 200-pounder, and just the huge size difference. You look at when they did the face-offs, when they did the weigh-ins, all that type of stuff. It looked like they were even, but then they got into the fight and it looked like a welterweight fighting a heavyweight. It looked really bad. So that. But here's my thing though. A lot of people are gonna point to that. They're gonna say Mike Perry is an older guy. He's taking a lot of damage in the BKFC. They're not gonna give him any credit. But here's the thing: going into the fight, a lot of MMA fans, a lot of boxing fans, people are thinking it's a 50-50 fight. People are thinking that he has a chance. Now, did I believe this? No. Did the odds think this? No. But there's legitimate people out there saying that Mike Perry can win the fight. Mike Perry can knock this guy out. Jake Paul isn't nothing. This guy is a terrible fighter. Mike Perry's going to humble him. Go into the fight, So, for people to backtrack, people got the audacity to sit up there and backtrack, be like, oh, nah, but he's old, though, And I'm a victim of it, too. I was one of Jake Paul's biggest haters. Now I've become one of his fans, actually. I was one of the biggest people. I said Ben Askren would knock him out. I said Woodley would knock him out. But I stand by what I say. I think Woodley beat him the first time, and I think Woodley was winning prior to when he got knocked out. I give him his credit for those wins, though. But the kid has improved. The kid has gotten so much better from these fights. I switched. After the Woodley fight, I think I picked him in every single fight after that. I picked him against Fury. I picked him against Silva, I believe. I picked him in all these fights, So when it comes to Jake Paul, I think people still think of him as that Disney kid. He's not that. He's clearly a skilled boxer. He's clearly made improvements, and he's clearly gone to a level in 6 years' time that not too many people can. So he's learned, he's picked up the sport. And I think people deserve credit, and they need to give him credit for this performance, because at the end of the day, it's not hindsight, bro. It's like you can't You can't look at the optics afterwards and be like, oh, this looked kind of bad, blah, blah, blah. You got to look at it for the context at the time. What was the context at the time, People thought that Mike Perry had a chance. So you got to judge him based off that. You can't just say, oh, well, he was old and blah, 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 make up excuses afterwards. It's the same thing with the Ikram Maliskarov and Robert Whittaker fight. Like, at the time, the odds were a pick 'em. People, I mean, me alike, I thought Ikram actually had a chance. Now looking back at it, was that kind of stupid given the experience that Whittaker had? Yes, but I'm still going to give Whittaker all the credit for that win that he got. So it's the same thing here. I don't want to hear people backtrack and be like, oh, Jake Paul fighting another washed MMA fighter. No, you guys legitimately thought that Mike Perry had a chance. Stand on that, and give the kid credit. Now, I guess for the second segment of this breakdown, we're going to talk about the call-outs that he made. He called out 2 fighters. He called out Mike Tyson. Obviously, that's going to happen. And then he called out Alex Pereira. We can talk about the Mike Tyson fight. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. That's not even. I don't even think that's going to happen. So I've been said that. The optics around that one with the age and the him having that little like the ulcer thing. I'm not really sure. I'm not a medical guy or anything. It's not really my field of profession or anything. That's not my field of expertise. But with all the medical issues that he has going on, the guy's 58 years old. He's almost 60. Like, the guy's a grandpa. I don't care how in shape you are. And this is not a guy who's like necessarily taking the best care of himself throughout these years. The guy still smokes, I think. The guy, he hasn't lived like the perfect life. It's one thing if it's someone who's, been healthy, never smoked, never, did drugs, was never drank alcohol, lived a very clean life. Maybe you could preserve your body, but even someone who's in the perfect shape, fighting at 58 is it's an outcry. I mean that's a tough proposition for anybody at 60 years old. Even if you add in the use of steroids, but I think if Paul's being fair, like, he should allow Mike Tyson to use steroids, because that's the only way that this can even be on a fair playing field, because like this is crazy what could potentially go on, in that fight. It's gonna be a brutal beating. I mean, if people are outraged with how long this fight went, I think there should definitely be a tighter reach on how that Mike Tyson, like, if Mike Tyson like gets hit with a couple unanswered shots, that fight should be stopped, because bro, like on bro. Let me not say anything crazy, but I feel very strongly that if Jake Paul really like puts hands on Tyson, that might be his last days on earth. Like, it's that bad. I mean, you see the issues that he's already dealing with. Like, we've never seen anything like this, though. A 58-year-old fighting someone so young, so powerful. I don't care that he's a Disney kid. I don't care that this is Mike Tyson. You gotta look at strip all that away. This is 2 people fighting, right? Powerful kid. This is someone who already has underlying illnesses, underlying conditions, and now he's gonna go out there and get knocked out. That he could legitimately die, like, real talk. I think we joke about that. Obviously, we saw about the Ashton Silva. I was gonna make a whole video dedicated to that, but I don't know if I will get to that. Honestly, I think I'll let some other people talk about that, because as much as I've been following his career, when that happened, I was like on my phone, and then I looked up and he just got knocked out. I'm a big Floyd Schofield fan, so I'm very biased. I'm not gonna say I was cheering for that to happen, but yeah, it sucks to see. I would have loved to see those 2 fight, but yeah, I hope he gets better. But that's something too. I mean, look at the wars that Mike Tyson's been in. He's been knocked out before, all that type of stuff. Now we at 58. Like, when I tell you Jake Paul will like storch that man, bro. If he makes improvements from this fight and then goes into that fight, a bigger and better 200-pounder, that's gonna be nasty. So that's my thoughts on that fight. I think that's a mismatch. I don't think that should happen. And I think if that does get sanctioned, like, that's a crime, whoever puts that together, because Jake Paul's not holding back at all. Now, when we look at the fight with Alex Pereira, I was thinking about that fight, right? I was thinking like, no, and on face value, a lot of these fights, it should be like, oh, he'll get killed. But I as much as I keep thinking about that fight, ever since he called him out, and honestly, when Pereira said he wanted to box, I'm thinking about, did I say Jake Paul? When Pereira said he wanted to box, right? I'm thinking of like actual boxing. I'm thinking of, let's do Pereira Wilder, because I think actually, Wilder has a pretty good chance of Sorry, Pereira has a pretty good chance of doing something to Wilder, considering how chinny he is. They're both pretty chinny. I think they're not too far from each other, low key. Obviously, you just got to add in the kicking with Wilder if you were to go into MMA, but you strip the kicking from Pereira. He's essentially a Wilder. Am I tripping? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But I'm looking at that fight with Pereira and Jake Paul. People got to remember, like, Pereira's a kickboxer. I know okay, first of all, he's a kickboxer. He's 37 years old. And he's chinny as a mug, bro. That guy's chinny. Like, not good. I'm telling you, you put that fight at 185. Oh my, bro. You put that fight at 185, Jake Paul's knocking him out. And I know that sounds crazy, but you take his kicking game is such a instrumental part of his game. That's such a crucial part of it. I think people just overlook like this stuff. I know he's a striker at heart. I'm sure he'd be like the odds-on favorite for sure. Like maybe like minus 200, minus 300. But this is a 37-year-old Alex Pereira, man. Like this is who's been knocked out brutally. Multiple. Is it multiple times in his career? I don't even know. But he's just chinny. You could just see him getting rocked in these fights, and yeah, if Jake Paul can put hands on him, man, I'm telling you, put that fight at 185. I think Jake Paul has a good chance of doing it. I think so. Obviously, Pereira has that left hook. But I think that fight's a lot closer than we make it out to be. You take away that guy's main weapon. I know he has that left hook, but the leg kicks is what sets all that up. He beats up your legs. Now you give this kid all the legs in the world. I'd love to see it. I mean, we've seen sparring footage with Pereira against, like, boxers, and he holds his own. He's doing pretty well, but that's sparring, I think we saw the Ngannou-Cyril Gane sparring. Like, a power puncher is always going to a power puncher is not always going to look the best when it comes to, sparring. You got to see them in a real fight. So that could apply to Pereira too. And I think both of those guys are power punchers in that regard. But yeah, we have to see it. They're two different guys, two different sports. Obviously, his striking game is revolved around the kicking. So stripping that away, it'll be interesting to see. We've seen it a little bit, but you'd have to. A guy with the experience now that Paul would be the more experienced boxer in that matchup. That fight gets me thinking, and it gets me thinking in a type of way that it gets me going. Like, there's certain fights that really like challenge the brain about like what could really happen in that fight, like a Max versus Ilya, like a Tom Aspinall. No, not Tom Aspinall. Like a fight like true 50-50 fights that's really like what could happen, like a Leon Edwards versus Islam Makhachev, like what could really happen, like a Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Hamzat, I guess at the time, Shavkat Usman, those 50-50 fights. So I think, like I said, I might be crazy, but I think Paul Pereira is like a pretty. You'd have to favor Pereira, but I'm saying if Paul gets in the gym, really starts working, and as Pereira starts aging, that's just more time for Paul to get better at boxing. Him come to this sport, he could just get chinned. We've seen it before. We saw what Izzy did to him. So yeah, he did that to him twice. So I don't count out Paul. He'd probably be a sizable underdog. But yeah, that's a fight I'd love to see that. I don't know if how if Dana would really work to make that fight happen, but because on paper I think Paul has the ability to do something really bad, take away one of his biggest stars. But I'm sure, like, after it's all said and done, why wouldn't Pereira want to do that? If he's like 40, he's already accomplished all this type of stuff. Why not go and just do that final thing? But we've seen what it can do. We saw what it did to Woodley. Woodley's gonna be forever remembered as that. I think it's kind of blown over though. I don't think it's. At the time when it happened, I was like, damn, like, now this is your legacy. But it's kind of blown over now that he's been doing this to all these other guys. So it's still a viral moment, but it happens. Everyone can get knocked out. Anyone can get knocked out. So, yeah, overall, good fight night. We had some shocking moments. We had Serrano getting that second round knockout. We had Ashton Silva getting knocked out. I think that was in the 6th round. Shocking upset. That's, pray for him. Wild moment in boxing. And then obviously Paul getting that knockout, and then calling out Mike Tyson and Alex Pereira. Like I said, I'd love to see Jake Paul versus Adesanya. You know, someone who's naturally a smaller guy. You know, a guy who can eat a shot. You know, I'd love to see a fight like that too. You know, I think, and honestly, Adesanya I don't think he's that far off from going into influencer boxing. You know, especially if he takes a loss against DDP. You know, I think he'd be down to do something like that for sure. And he has that crossover appeal. And you could even argue that he's a bigger name than Alex Pereira. So, but Alex Pereira is the hotter name right now. He's definitely popping more with the knockouts that he has. And he's older. He's close to the end of his career, I would say. So, either fight, man. Those are strikers. So, that's what I'd like to see, man. That's all I really got for y'all today. Just a yapping session, you know, IBP podcast, all that type of stuff. Talking about the sport of boxing on a Saturday night. Leave a like on the video, subscribe. Pizza almost got, you know what it is.